Hi, church. We are here as the pastors of the Northside Co-op from Big Shoulders Church, Grace Church of Logan Square, and United Church of Rogers Park. We are here just processing in real time with one another our experience of yesterday as we watched a mob of insurrectionists take over our capital or attempt to take over our capital to incite violence in our country, in the people's house that we own. People who had been led to believe by conspiracy theorists who were trying to make money off of them to say that a free and fair election had not happened when it had indeed. And so there was a lot of fear yesterday, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pain and grief as we watched especially white vigilantes, white mobsters come in and be responded to with grace and be escorted out of the Capitol to climb walls, scale walls, and steal artifacts or desecrate artifacts and not be arrested. And when we've seen other people of color be escorted quickly off or isolated or shunned or arrested, and the difference of that experience too, and the stark, the drastic difference that we saw and the pain of that. And so we're here to respond to all of that, and maybe not, maybe just acknowledge that it happened. But as pastors, we also believe that it is our response to say the reality of what it is, and also to remind ourselves of what hope is there in God, and what hope is cannot be found right now, or that is humans, we may not be experiencing hope right now. So Hope and Lindsey, I am again so grateful to not be alone in this work, but to be joined by you all and loved and supported and cared and processed with. Would one of you like to tell us how you're doing this morning?
Yeah, I can go ahead and share a little bit. I mean, yesterday was tough, right? Kind of realized that something was going on in the afternoon and found myself again sitting in the living room with my kids. My kids, one's in high school, one's in junior high, and trying to process with them. We had the news on. We're watching the I don't usually watch 24-hour news, right? But like put on and the network, and was just watching things unfold and trying to make sense of that. And sitting with my kids who are in, government class civics, they're learning about they're also learning about history and trying to put this in context. Trying to understand why people would do this, how this could happen. I think I have a lot of questions still this morning, right? Like how was this allowed? Seeing some of the photos that were being published yesterday and that have been out of the Confederate flag being in the Capitol, of people just barging in, and there's like no accountability, like no one stopped them. It seemed like I have a lot of, there's so many questions about that. And to hear the remarks from our president, even over the weekend, with the phone call that happened, and where is the accountability, right? Like, where is accountability going to come from, and how do we not stand by, right? Like, and I think I'm still looking to someone to stop this, right? Like, so kind of where I am, just trying to hold all of it. How about you, Lindsey?
Yeah, I mean, I where am I? It's there's like so many things. I remember like yesterday Adam called me and was like, how are you doing? And I made a noise expecting there to be words on the other side of that noise, and there never were. I just kind of went, like that's kind of where I feel like I am. I am at a point where I am so raw. I'm beyond. We've all been functioning in burnout for so long. It's beyond burnout, right? I'm broken at this point, and I think that's a correct human response to a breaking world, right? I feel broken, feel very weepy, but not at like. It's funny. I'm not crying at the the really horrible crap, right? I'm crying at like tiny little kindnesses, right? Like, when I came outside this morning, Harper refused to wear a mask, and one of my neighbors was walking by and noticed and just like stopped and stood back so that she could pass. And like, that's just being a normal human. But for some reason, I just got in the car and cried about that. And yeah, that's just where it's so hard. It's really frustrating. Frustrating is not the right word, but I don't have the right words today, so don't expect that from me. I think part of me is like, I just want everything to stop. Like, I just want to stop. I think I saw a tweet that was like, somebody's coworker asked them, "Do we have to keep working during the coup?" And someone's like, "That is like the most American tweet I've ever heard." And I was like, do I have to keep working during the coup? And so like part of me wants everything to stop. And then another part of me is like, the work I'm doing is already survival work. Like, there's not a whole lot that I can peel back and be like, oh, this is unnecessary. Kind of everything that we're doing right now is survival work. And there's part of me that's grateful that I have something to do, right? Besides doom scroll on Twitter. And there's part of me that's so tired and so broken and so beyond burnout that I don't know what to do with it, and I don't know how to heal it. And then there's this other tiny little part of me that is so cynical and finds like these images are so chilling, and then there's some of them that I couldn't even control it. This laughter bubbled up out of me, like police being whacked with Blue Lives Matter signs, and like just like some of these images, it's just so beyond truth, right? It's just so unrooted from any consistent understanding of any historical narrative or anything. And it's also not. And I think like both of these things are like playing in my mind, and I feel like a crazy person, just laughing and crying and laughing and crying, and like that's where I am. Yeah. How about you, Erin?
Yeah. I before I launch, I just want to say like all of our responses are like not abnormal responses to trauma, right?
Yeah, and thank you, Lindsey, for mentioning the laughter. I just want to say this: my kids were laughing, right? Mm-hmm. And I found myself just like, I don't want them to be laughing at this, right? Because it's not, and yet they were seeing the absurdity of it, right? Like they could see, like, yeah.
And sometimes laughter is a defense mechanism, right? It's not an uncaring response. Right. It is a defense mechanism when you don't know what to do, or you are so overwhelmed by, especially maybe for children, I don't know, but for me, I often respond with laughter too when I don't mean to. I think I am so freaking angry that I've been led to tears, to dumb arguments with my spouse, to closing my door and isolating myself, to inability to sleep. Angry that people felt emboldened to do this by not only our president, but by the rhetoric from other leaders who did not have the courage to stand up until last night during the speeches, when they like at the very last moment, when it was already too late, decided to say something was wrong. And I'm also angry at the number of people carrying Jesus saves signs and chanting Jesus's name in their work, because it is not the work of Jesus that they do. And Jesus does not save countries, does not save positions of power. Jesus regularly saves the people who do not feel bold enough to storm the Capitol. But Jesus saves the people who can't even climb the steps. And so I'm angry that the thing I hold so dear, my identity as a Christian, continues to be dragged through the mud. Because there is already so much work to be done to convince people that that is not who Jesus is, and that is not what church stands for, and that our God is not about hatred and tearing people apart and separating people or making them feel less than. And so I feel like there's already so much work to do, and this is not helping y'all. Get out of here with this nonsense. That's my laughter response to the trauma, right? And so I don't know what to do, but I know there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm really angry. So that's where I'm at. I also know that this is not the first time someone has used the name of God and created idols for themselves to worship, whether it's a leader or a movement, or turned away from what God is actually doing and what God is up to. And so I know that this is not the first time that we have, as a people of God, been up against this, and it will probably not be the last time. And so I try and lean into that heritage of people who have gone before me and stood up and said what God is actually about and who God is actually for, which is the marginalized and the oppressed and the people without a voice and the people whose votes are trying to not be counted. So that's where I'm at today. We also, like, as pastors, are constantly looking for those God moments, those presence of God moments. Sometimes we call it hope. And I'm wondering where you all are finding that, if at all, and what you are looking to or pointing towards for hope. Is there anything?
Yeah, I am finding some hope. And yesterday, as I was watching, hearing some of the news reports, they were, had some Congress people that they were interviewing, right? Like, who were hunkered down, and the reality that, and they were talking about, yeah, we're all together, or we're all in the same room, and acknowledging the fact of how divided the country is. Like, well, normally, when we have lunches, it's the Democrats have their lunch and the Republicans have their lunch. When we go into committee meetings, Democrats sit on one side and Republicans sit on one side. And in that moment and what was happening yesterday, everyone was in that together. And there were conversations happening in those rooms that should have happened, right? Like, they should have happened years ago. Not even months, like years ago, and that those conversations happened, right? I do believe that sometimes these moments can bring us together. My hope in this is that this shared trauma, right? Like, the shared trauma that our senators and representatives have experienced, that trauma will bring people together in conversation. That my hope is that maybe now we can start to work together and get things done. Like, maybe this can be a wake-up call. I mean, I know it's like, how many and what, I know we've been here before, right? Like, this is the frustrating thing, but I mean, how could we even have imagined this? I mean, have we finally gotten to the point that we can all open our eyes from this and see that things have to change, and that there are ways that we can be in conversation, and there are things and values that we hold in common, like that what happened yesterday was not okay, that we can't just violently respond to things, that we can't just disregard elections, that we can't just throw out the Constitution, right? Like maybe that there's something here. And so that's my hope in all of this, that that somehow we can begin to talk again, that people can begin to talk again. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I asked for us to talk about this question because it makes me so angry. This, like, where are you finding hope question? I want people to find hope. I want people to have comfort, and I don't want to take that away from anybody. And I am grateful if you all are finding places of hope in this. I am not. I'm not so much like I'm so again, words. I'm so I don't even want hope right now. Like, that's where I am. Like, I'm not looking for hope. If it came to me, I would reject it. I am so angry that and maybe it's this reaction to what I feel like is a sort of cheap hope. If I believed that there was some real hope coming, maybe I would think differently. But for me, I think I am so angry and so terrified that any offer of hope that isn't some deep well beyond anything we've ever been offered before is not enough for me. Mm-hmm. Here, like, I'm not a political analyst, right? You all didn't come to this to hear my political analysis, but here's what it is for me. I actually think, there's this narrative that's like, can you imagine if they were actually competent? Can you imagine, if it wasn't just some guy trying to get into Nancy Pelosi's office to fart in her chair, right? Like, can you imagine if it was something beyond that? But here's the thing, I actually don't think that's what this was at all. I think this was massively successful. I don't think this was at all about overturning an election. Maybe some of the folks in there thought that they were doing that, but I think the folks in power, the people who are inciting this, know what they're doing, and it's not about overturning this election. Joe Biden's going to be president. I'm not worried about that, and I'm not excited about it either. But what it was a way to show it doesn't matter, right? It was a show of power to say, there's 1,000 of us, we just stormed the Capitol. I'm walking around in here, live streaming myself with my face out, as a like public figure. They were like elected and former elected officials there, right? Like, this was a way to say, it doesn't matter. Sure, you won Georgia. Sure, you have all three, you've got the presidency, the Senate, and the House, and we're still in power, and it doesn't matter. And I think understanding that these calls for peaceful transition, that's not what this is about. Fine, let's have a peaceful transition. What we need is to take power away from those who incited this. And I just don't believe that anybody has the political ability, political courage, political will, or the correct understanding of the narrative of the history of what's happening, to actually do anything about this. And so I didn't watch the speeches. And I know that a lot of people found comfort in these speeches, and I want you to have comfort. I don't want to just always be the fly in the ointment, but I think we also have to tell the truth that, like, so what? Too little, too late. I feel like this was this was, to me, this was a recruiting event, right? Where people in power knew that they did not have the infrastructure to actually do a coup, but this was the first step in building that. And I don't think people in power either don't understand it, don't want to understand it, or don't have the power to do anything about it. And that's terrifying to me. That's just what makes me. Did I talk about the Jonah stuff already? I don't even remember.
No, I was going to tell you.
I was That just it makes me feel like the place I'm in right now is Jonah in the desert at the end, not like Jonah in the belly of the whale, not the cute little Jonah narrative. I'm Jonah who's sitting in the desert where God's given me this plant. The plant has died. I'm sitting there and God says like, do you do well to be angry about this plant? And I say, yes, I do well to be angry enough to die. And this is not a cry for help. I'm not having I want to be, I'm not having suicidal ideation. And if you are, please reach out. But I'm so angry that I don't want anything other than a complete overturning than what we've been promised, right? I don't want anything less than the promise, which is that the world is going to be made new. And I'm tired of waiting. And I'm angry about it. I'm angry at God. I'm angry at everybody. I don't want anything less than what we've been promised. But here's where I'm not falling into despair, because I believe, I do believe that the end of the story is still this. I believe that the end of the story is not death, is not these death-making things and these things of death, white supremacy, and all this crap that we're living through. Sorry, I really want to curse, and I also have like a weird thing still where I don't want you all to hear me curse, even though all of you know that I do. But we're recording this, so. But I think I'm not falling into despair because I believe that God's holding my hope, and I'll be able to pick it up again. And I trust God to do that, even when I'm angry at God. And I also believe in the promise still. I still believe in the promise. And I believe that there's things we can do about it. I'm kind of thinking about government, frankly, the way I sometimes think about the United Methodist Conference. When they can support us, great, we'll take that support. And when they get in the way of what we know to be faithful, we work around them and we build something new.
Yeah, Lindsey, it's reminding me of, the kingdom of God and the promise that that there is the new heaven and the new earth. And how do we hold on to that?
Right.
And the reason the story of Jonah exists in the Bible is because it is a reality that people experience, that it should not be glossed over or quickly pushed aside, that it is a reality people feel, that bitterness and anger, and I don't know if I can pick up my hope right now, is a real human experience, and it is okay.
And I don't know that I want to, right? Like that's,
and Jonah's not the end of the story.
Right, exactly. And I'm so tired of this sort of like, let's take a deep breath. Well, I've never been good at this anyway, and I don't like really buy into it. This like, let's find a silver lining. Like all of that for me is, we have this silver lining. The silver lining is the end of the story. What are the things that are getting in the way of that? And what do I have the power to do about it? And that's why this national stuff is so hard, because I don't have any power. I don't have any power to go and stop a mob. But I do have power to be kind to the people I encounter today. And I do have power. I have power in our community in the same way that you all do, to make things less cruel for people. And, I just.
Yeah, I think that's where I maybe as a community can pick up the hope for you when you don't feel it right now. Because my anger fuels me to hope real fast. Mostly out of spite. You will not take this hope from me, which is maybe not healthy, but it's fine. It's what I got. In that you will try and take Jesus's name in vain, and I will not let you, mother, brother, sister. And you don't have to have hope right now, but I am going to fiercely hold on to it, because I fear moving to like nihilism or powerlessness too quickly, because I get stuck there, and my depression makes me wallow there, and it's not healthy for me. And so I have to push myself hard to get past it. So I want to like honor where you are and say like, you don't have to, and your sister will pick up for you, because I find hope in the fact that it's not just me. I'm not alone in this, that we are not alone, that there are people in Georgia fighting to make sure that 90% of the people turn out to vote. 90%. They get to vote however they want, but 90% get to vote. That when I talk to my dad, just to show him my cute baby, he also sighs and says, well, I gotta go. I gotta call my elected officials. And my dad lives in Texas to let them know that what they're doing isn't right. And so I find hope in that there are other people in this journey with me, continuing to stand up. And so I might have to take a nap. I might have to take a long hot shower. But I'm gonna get up and lace up my shoes and get out there and keep going. Because I also believe that I don't do it alone, and that God has gone with God's people in the past, and God will go with us again in the future. I often look to other pastors that I really admire in times like this and see what they're doing. And most of them are kind of like, church, I ain't got nothing. I was like, thank God, because I don't either, but also tell me. My pastor, mentor, whomever, she wouldn't want me to refer to her as my mentor, but she just read last night, Psalm 46. The Lord is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. Though the earth should change, though the mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though its waters roar with foam, though the mountains tremble with its tumult. Selah. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of the city, it shall not be moved. God will help it when the morning dawns. The nations are in an uproar, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice and the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. Come behold the works of the Lord. This is interesting. See what desolations he has brought to the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear and burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. And so that is where my hope is.
I think it's really important to note, like, the value of our traditions and rituals. I know we're coming into this series on ritual, right? And that in times like this, that we can find sustaining grace in our rituals and traditions, right? We've talked some this summer, and I continue to explore how contemplation and our spiritual practices inform our justice work, right? That there's this grounding that happens, and when we look to those who have done this work in the past, there's this grounding in our in meditation and silence in these practices. And it is faithful to sit in silence. It is faithful to I think about, like we talked about Jonah, it's faithful to sit under that vine and cry and be angry and curse. Yes, and curse. It is faithful to sit and tear your clothes and throw ashes in the air. And it is faithful. And there's a silence, and everything stops. And I think the fact that we don't know what to say right now is okay. Like let's just sit. What happens if we just sit in silence and find and get up? I mean, we're going to get up. We're not going to stay there, but we're going to get up and know where we're going, right? Like we're going to get up and know the next thing. Our God is faithful. Our God is faithful. Thank you for sharing that scripture, Erin. important.
So I have a question for you all, and maybe we can end with this. What are you gonna do today?
Mm,
I
mm.
mean, I think like that's just
Love
like
that question.
like what did I mean, like I've got meetings, I've got things I've got to do. I mean, I think I was thinking about this as you were both talking, and I think we talk for years at all of our congregations, we've talked about um being faithful today and letting tomorrow be what it will be. And I don't even know that I can promise that. I'm at a point where like I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to be faithful in this breath. I'm going to trust another one is coming after this, and I'm going to try and be faithful at that one, and like and I'm going to try and just do my work as I can. Um and I'm going to be honest when I can't. Um but I think that's what I'm going to do today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna honor today, right? Like I feel to take time to listen to what to myself, right? Like to what's happening to and in that and hearing what God um seeing where God is, hearing from that, and listening to others right now, right? Like listening to those who need to be heard, listening to those who are hurting. And so I think that today I want to just kind of honor that silence, right? Like, and in the silence, that active silence where you're listening, like where you're like, I don't know, like that still where I feel like you're standing and you're ready and you're listening. It's definitely not a passive listening, but yeah, I think that's what I'm going to be doing today. And, trying to continue to move on with the things that.
Their survival work.
Yeah, you all are so great. I'm going to tell you honestly, I'm not going to do anything I had planned. I had 3 meetings that I promised to make happen, and I'm going to call all of them and say, not today, next week. I'm going to check in on a few people that I know might be hurting more so than myself. And I'm going to read words from people who are smarter than I am. I'm going to maybe set an alarm and pray Psalm 46 a couple of times today. I'm going to take it slow because slow helps me do that non-dulling of the senses, active listening that you were talking about, Hope. So it might look like less work, but it actually is that intentional work. It might look less productive, but it will be very, very productive, I think. So I love that question. Thank you for asking that, Lindsey. I don't know how long we've been talking.
My next meeting.
Yeah. You got work to do, girl. Thank you. Instead of prayer, which might feel awkward to end a video call on, maybe I'll just end with our benediction of may you be excessively gentle with yourself today. May you find rest. And may you hear the still, quiet voice of God in every moment. Okay. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.